People who work in high-class restaurants and hotels. What is the most ridiculous, stereotypical rich person thing you've ever experienced someone has done? Ordering the most expensive wine in the house. Pouring 2 glasses. Taking a sip. And sending it back knowing full well they are paying for it. To those folks I say thank you. Nothing makes employees happier than free, expensive booze. My former boss, insanely wealthy, used to stay in presidential suites and would have any and all red removed. He was a high roller at several casinos and they made special chips just for him as a substitute to red chips. He hated the color red because when you're losing money, you're in the red. During our honeymoon, my husband and I came back to our very nice hotel from a day full of hiking looking like homeless people. We were waiting for the elevator with another couple who were both giving us the side eye. Once on the elevator, the couple pressed the bottom for the top floor which was the same as ours. After about 30 seconds of silence and side eyes, the woman turns to me and says you need to press the button for your floor in a condescending tone. I told her our floor was already selected and she had the audacity to say you have a suite on the top floor. This isn't as much a specific instance, but something that happens all the time with entitled or rich people. I work at a very expensive hotel in Hawaii and people will just come up to the desk and yell words at you. Like no hello or please, just luau or ATM. It's like they aren't even thinking of us as people. I worked for a resort in the Seychelles for 4 years. I have hundreds of stories which would fit this post, but one that stands out was a very wealthy Canadian family who stayed at one of the private residences for a couple of weeks. They brought their own staff including 2 personal chefs but also asked for a hotel chef to assist their team with prep and local ingredient knowledge. A chef I was friendly with was selected to spend the 2 weeks with them. One day, another member of their staff came down to one of the restaurants and purchased 2 bottles of wine for 11,000 euros plus each. Now we had far more expensive bottles on the list, but this was still a notable sale, and later that night, I asked my mate what they had cooked to accompany the wine. Turns out they had poured both bottles into the pot while making a coq au vin. I am a cocktail server at the huge pool of a 4-star hotel, a woman said in a monotone voice, and without any eye contact I lost my sunscreen. Find it. I operated a premium chain restaurant in Canada. One day this Indian gentleman started coming in, at first by himself. On the first day he spent $200 on wine and tipped $1,000. The next day he did the same again. When we saw him the third time I had servers fighting over him. Anyway, one evening he got drunk on wine and Brad the busboy made the mistake complimenting his watch. Mr. S takes off his tag and gives it to Brad. The next morning Mr. S comes back to get his car and asks if Brad is there. I say yes and go get him. Brad knows what's up and is removing the watch as he walks over to Mr. S. Mr. S says, "Brad, I'm really sorry I got drunk last night and gave you my watch." Brad is chuckling as he is removing the watch and says it's no problem and he was just holding the watch until Mr. S returned. The next thing Mr. S said, "I could not believe. Brad, you don't understand. I'm sorry because it was very rude of me to give you a used gift." And at that moment Mr. S pulled out a box with a brand new tag heuer inside and handed it to Brad. Back when I did waitering, there was a woman and her friends at one of my tables. The woman asked for a can of Coke. Coca-Cola, just so we're clear. When I brought their drinks and gave the woman her Coke, she looked at me, and, in that typical rich bitch voice, said, "Excuse me, honey, I asked for Fanta, not Coke." So I apologized, wrote it onto my notepad, and went back to get her a can of Fanta, brought it to her, and again, she turned to me and said I didn't ask for Fanta, I asked for cream soda. By this time, I was getting a bit annoyed, but went back and got her a cream soda anyway, and surely, when I returned to her table, she did the same thing again. I asked for Sprite. Should I call the manager? So, for the last time, I smiled and I went back to the kitchen and packed 1 can of each. Coke, cream soda, Fanta, Sprite, Pepsi and Sparberry soda, into a small plastic box and took it all to her and said, "Here you go, miss. Take your pick." She looked offended and almost made a scene. She started lecturing me about how I'm incapable of getting the simplest order right and that she wants to talk to the restaurant's manager. I told her that I can call him, and that I'll show him all the soda types I wrote on my notepad that she asked for, and we can get his opinion on the matter. She turned and took her damn Sprite out of the plastic box and said, "Just leave it." Her friends were silent throughout the whole ordeal and none of them gave me any issues further on. I didn't receive a tip, as expected, but I shrugged it off. Most customers were decent. Edit. Waitering is a South African term, but I learned some better terms and ways of referring to that from you guys. Thanks you. Worked at a grocery store in uppity Gold Coast, Chicago when I was a teen. We sold soup for lunch, and when bagging them, we put it in a paper bag followed by a plastic bag to make sure it's secure. Lady buys a soup. I proceed to bag the soup and she says no, I'll just put it in my bag. I say, are you sure? Mind you, she has a Louis Vuitton bag that looks brand spanking new. 15 minutes later she comes in raging that she has minestrone all over her Louis Vuitton and demands to speak to a manager. SMH. Oh yay, I love this one. First and foremost, throw a 6-year-old's birthday party at a tapas restaurant called Wine Company. Try to feed them tartar. Scoff when your child asks for balloons or French fries. Try to feed them jalapeno creme brulee for dessert. Try to quiz them on picking out scents in wine. Sigh when they don't care. Keep ordering more wine when they fall asleep on the booth. Complain to in-laws about how exhausting motherhood is. Have to Uber home with a 6-year-old. Everyone else. Order a walnut salad and then yell at your server for it having walnuts, because you're allergic. Yell at server because the top of the creme brulee is burnt. Inquire about the immigration status of the chef. Tip your server $40 immediately after telling her she doesn't look too bright. Tell her she'll get over it. Shove your server when he comes to warn you that your reservation on the table is officially past the previously agreed upon time. Scream that he isn't allowed to touch you back when he tries to disconnect your arm from his collar. Edit. These were all different people. I've got a pretty good one. I work at a luxury property in California, and we had the co-founder of a large payment processing company stay with us a while back. He only liked to sleep on his own bed, so when he woke up that morning, he paid a team to load his bed into a truck and have it delivered to our property. We then removed the bed in his luxury suite and set out his bed that his team had brought us. He only stayed with us one night and the process was done to send the bed back home the following day. It kind of blew my mind that he went through all that trouble, just so he could always sleep on his own bed. To each their own, I guess. Don't work at any high-class restaurants or hotels, but I currently live in an old yet nice and comfy apartment in Giza, around 20 minutes from the Pyramids complex. The landlady is a very nice old lady, probably in her 60s, and is filthy rich. Last year my car had to be repaired after a minor crash for more than a week, and when the landlady found out from the doorman, about my situation, she sent one of her English-speaking maids to give me car keys for a BMW 520i, Mercedes-Benz S600, and a brand new Land Cruiser. The madam insists you use her car until yours is repaired. I was shocked, of course, and asked her if she still could go around with her lending this much cars to me. No worry, madam has 12 cars in Al Kahira. Okay, I guess. I ended up only using the Land Cruiser because it's the cheapest one, I think. Another story is when she knew I would graduate from college soon. She asked me to come visit her place. I did as she asked, and she just gave me a set of keys and some money. Here, I have nice villa in Ansokna. Go visit it with friend and family. Food and drinks is on me. I have maids and cooks there. Car you can use mine. The money is for fuel. Happy graduation. I told her that I just couldn't take it, but she just shooed me away and told me to return her keys only after I really visited the villa. Haven't gone to the place yet, but I will soon enough when I have time. Ridiculous. Yeah, but in a really good way. Worked in a fancy smancy lobster pound restaurant on the water where had a lot of outdoor seating. These very wealthy people come to eat and demand a table outside for dinner. Now it's just before sundown in the middle of summer in Maine and we're on the water, so mosquitoes are definitely not scarce. These people sit down, order a $200 bottle of wine, a massive lobster each and some appetizers. They seem to enjoy the meal up until the sun sets and the bugs come out. These people were not happy and complaining about it and the shitty restaurant not paying for mosquito spraying. The waitress gets a couple candles to light and asks if they need anything else, and those motherfuckers asked her to stand next to them with a flisswater. She laughed thinking they were joking and the man said whatever happened to good service nowadays. They also left 0 tip on a $350 bill. This is more in the vein of a rich douchebag stereotype, but my dad used to work as a valet for Larry's in downtown Chicago. Some pretty well-known football player came in about 15 minutes before closing with a group of friends. He made them reopen the kitchen, so they could all have steaks. Then they stayed for almost 2 hours after close, being really loud and obnoxious and rude to most of the staff. He also tipped everyone horribly, especially considering everyone had to stay later because of him. In contrast to this guy, there was another NFL player that came in that was not as famous. He was extremely kind to everyone and tipped amazingly. He didn't drive there, so there was no car for my dad to get, but he asked my dad if he could hail him a cab, and when he did he gave him $100 just for that.